If you can introduce yourself first.
Well, my name's Manny, but I produce hip hop and grime and like beats for rappers under the name Bana, and then I make house and garage under the name Bipolar Bear. But I think you want to interview me as Bana today, isn't it?
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah. So yeah, that's it. My real name's Manny or Manuel. I go by the name Bana when I make hip hop.
Yes. So how did it all begin for you as an artist? What gave you that?
Have I what? Sorry.
How did it all begin for you?
I've always loved hip hop, like literally since really young. I liked De La Soul were like the first hip hop group. I remember seeing them. They got a song called Me, Myself and I, and I remember seeing that and loving the video to it and stuff, and thinking, oh, I like rap music. You know what I mean? So. I'm not someone who wants to be like a rapper because I'd hate to be in the limelight and stuff like that, which is why I wear the bandana to like cover my face and stuff like that. I'd just like to be part of like hip hop, but behind the scenes, just as a producer or a beat maker, really. So yeah, it started for me when I saw De La Soul, Me, Myself and I, a video for that, and then there was things like Snoop Dogg, Gin and Juice, and all that stuff in the early 90s that got me into it, really. Yeah. So, but the production, that was at Northbrook 3 years ago. I've DJ'd for 10 years, and I was just playing like old school hip hop and R&B and garage nights and stuff. And I kept hearing more and more music and thinking, I want to learn how to make it myself and remix people's stuff. And so, yeah, after 10 years of DJing, really, it wasn't enough. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want to just play other people's things. I wanted to make my own. So, yeah, I just decided I went to Northbrook for a year at college. And that's where I met you, obviously. And then I went for 2 years doing uni, and I'd like to come back and do the final top-up year. And yeah, that's how I started off in production. So started off as a hip hop fan really young, probably about 7 years old. Then DJing for 10 years, and then that sort of wasn't enough. So I went for production, and that was, 4 years ago now. I started learning production, yeah. So yeah, that's how I got started.
So what were the first and the best gig you've played at?
Oh God, there is I'm from Burgess Hill, a small town called Burgess Hill, and I would say my favourite gig I've played was in Haywards Heath, which is the next town along. They have this little promenade of like cafes, restaurants and bars and stuff, and they shut the whole road down on bank holidays, and at one end they have a stage and the other end they have a stage, and then they just like someone will do an hour's set and then they have a half an hour break, then the other end someone else will do. And I DJ'd in a bar along there when that was all going on. So once the festival had finished at about sort of, I don't know, 9 o'clock, because it's like a day street party, everyone was sort of in that area, and yeah, loads of people come into the bar that I was playing at, and I was playing all that old school hip hop and R&B and garage and house, and yeah, that's probably my favourite gig, to be honest. I like playing, when you play clubs, you kind of can play songs for longer and drag them out a bit more, and people don't get bored because they're kind of on the dance floor and you won't lose them. When you play a bar, you've got to be a bit quicker because people go, oh, let's go out for a cigarette, I'm bored of this song, you know what I mean? Or do this and do that, go to the bar. So I find you can play quick, you can play for longer in bars, like let songs, in clubs, run out, and you have to play quicker in bars. I've played one festival before, and that was different as well. I think when you play like a festival, a bar, a club, you got play them all differently, do you know what I mean? So yeah, I'd like to get to playing more festivals, really.
Was that the first and the best?
That's not my first. My first gig was I started off doing like just friends' house parties and stuff. I thought to myself, I'm not good enough to, play in bars and clubs and stuff. So I did friends' house parties. Literally, I would say, get me a crate of beer or a bottle of vodka and I'll play it. And then it was, I'll give me 50 quid and I'll play it. Then I got my own speakers and I was starting to charge like people to do parties. And after 6 months of DJing, I just flagged it and I just said, oh yeah, I head to this bar, like made out I was better than I am. And I was then resident DJ there for about a year. We used to do this night called Thirsty Thursdays, and people would literally just be really cheap drinks, but I wouldn't really mix loads at that. I would just play songs. So if they wanted some indie or they wanted some, hip hop or whatever, I weren't really mixing loads, but it was good to get the experience of playing out, Yeah. So yeah, but I think my first gig was probably people's parties, as you start off doing friends parties. Then it was a residency at a pub, but that wasn't really like mixing, it was just playing music as such. like a glorified iPod. And then it started off, I was doing like weddings and bigger events and, you know, a bit more pressure. And yeah, and then I just started having residencies at clubs and bars and things, really. I think once you know you can mix confidently, and, you know, if you cock up a mix, it doesn't matter too much because people are drunk and stuff, but you don't really want to be in that environment and cock up because they'll hear it, you know what I mean? So I find I didn't want to get into mixing live until I knew I could do it properly, you know. I was DJing before I could mix, because a lot of pubs and bars, they don't care if you can mix. It's just if you play decent music and it goes into the next one nicely and it all sounds professional, you know.
How many tracks have you produced so far?
What, as Dan Banner?
Yes.
Hip hop tracks, I would say I set myself a task of doing 200 royalty-free beats, and I reached that because of the lockdown. Obviously, I had nothing better to do, so I was just making beats and trying to learn. So I would say to date, I've probably made about 220 beats, but tracks and songs, I've only made about 8, like recorded with rappers. So, but each task at the moment, I'm only really imitating like other people's stuff. I haven't found my own sound. And so for learning, I think it's good to imitate other people's stuff. So I did like beat tapes of 20 beats. So I've got 20 grime beats, 20 trap beats, 20, you know, all subgenres of hip hop, because personally I just feel if you imitate other people's stuff, you learn how they made it, and then you can go on to either make that same sound if you want or create your own sound, you know. But I've probably made about 220 royalty free beats that are all on YouTube and SoundCloud for any rappers to use. And I've recorded with rap artists. I've only done about 8 tracks, but I'm only on SoundCloud and YouTube at the moment. When I think I've got to a point where I'm, you know, good enough to start charging for beats and working with rappers and going like 50-50 and putting it on Spotify and stuff, then I'll be, you know what I mean? I'll be more confident and I'll go for that. That's the ideal. I'd like to either pay rappers to rap on my beat or say to them, let's do a 50-50 royalty split and just actually release it professionally and properly on Bandcamp and Spotify and stuff. But for the moment, I'm happy with just SoundCloud and YouTube and not just learning, you know what I mean? Yeah, 220. I think it's about 220 beats. My next project is I want to do samples. So I'm going to take a song and like do 20 songs that I like and just sample bits out of them and make a new beat out of that. So, and then after that, I want to do 20 remixes. So I think the more you do different things, when you remix, you learn certain things. When you sample, you learn other things. So I'm just setting myself different tasks really that are totally different to the next one.
Who is your biggest inspiration, or whom do you have a lot of respect for?
Just generally musically, I've got on this hand I've got a Prince tattoo, and my son's middle name's Prince. He's like my ultimate artist, which is why I wear the bandana. Actually, it's a bit to do with that. He's got a place, his home is called Paisley Park, and this Paisley pattern is, you know, something that he used to sort of use, and I thought, oh, it's quite a nice like little tip of the hat to him to wear the Paisley print, you know, because he's my most favourite artist. The other hand, I've got James Brown, who is like he's the most sampled artist of all time, because a lot of his hip hop break beats, like people chop up and use in their hip hop beats and stuff. So I would say just general musicians, it's got to be probably Prince and James Brown are my most favourite like influences. But in hip hop, producers that I could sit here and name probably 10. Like I like Ninth Wonder, Jay Dilla, Apollo Brown, RZA from like the Wu-Tang, people who like sample old sounds and funk and soul. So I've got funk and soul tattooed on my fingers. I think I like that old funky soulful sound that's a bit gritty and a bit like, you know what I mean, not too clean and overproduced. But then I also like people like Pharrell and Timbaland, you know, that do the bit more commercial sort of hip hop and R&B really. But yeah, they're big influences. All the 90s and noughties hip hop and R&B producers, I like them. But actual musicians, it's got to be Prince and James Brown.
What are currently your main challenges?
I would say learning. I don't think, you know, a lot of people are very lucky. They can just, like, you could be Stormzy and do that video shut up in the middle of a park and then blow up like that. These days, you can be lucky on social media and just make it off of one track and then wing it the rest of the way. But I personally I just want to learn and collaborate, because each person you collaborate with, you know, you learn something from them, they learn something from you. And each project I set myself, like whether it's a sample project or a remix project or a a drill beat or whatever, you learn how they use those sounds and how they lay them out and what they do. But yeah, my biggest challenge is probably collaborating, getting people to collaborate, really. I've run a competition where you say, oh, you know, £50 to the winner to rap on my beat. That worked all right. Then I've done things, just said, look, I want to make an album of all the local Brighton artists. Who wants in? Do you know what I mean? I've put flyers around the university saying, you know, I want to collaborate and work with rap artists. It's just, I think, which is ridiculous, getting people to collaborate with you is the hardest bit, really. Making the music, I don't find hard. It's not hard work because I enjoy it. Promoting myself, I don't find hard because I like social media. Yeah, it's literally getting people to want to work.
So what instruments do you work with?
I don't actually play, I don't read music, I don't play any instruments at all. But most of the music I make is by Polar Bear. I buy my sounds and samples, and I either chop them so they're not exactly the same, or I'll put some effects on them so they're different. And I use, you can see here, I've got like an MPC machine.
Yes.
Can you see that there? So there's like, you know, you put the sounds on the pad and tap them out. And I've got a mini keyboard here. These are my decks. Sometimes I'll record like scratches and mixes and things. But in general, because it's all digital, I literally sample things. Most of hip hop's sample based anyway. A lot of house and garage is sample based or reworked stuff, you know, remixes and that. So I don't actually play any instruments. I can't read music. I don't know about keys and things. I just know if I pop that in and it's in the wrong key and it sounds wrong, then I have to alter it and change it. Do you know what I mean? Because I've come from a DJ background, I know more about arrangement of music and what will work and what won't, rather than like the science behind it and the math. So I want to learn more about, like, you know, what key this is in and how to play an instrument and all that. But it's not the be all and end all. I think nowadays with technology, you can make music without even playing an instrument. So, and most of the rappers I know just sample drum kicks and beats and then just play it all out on that. So yeah, because it's sample based and digital, I don't think I'll probably end up learning an instrument, but I'd like to. Yeah, so that's the answer to that one. I don't play an instrument. But I use the MPC machine and the sampler and the laptop, really. Some people these days, their instrument's their laptop, really, and they don't actually, you know what I mean, play a guitar or a piano. Or if I had to learn one, though, it'd be piano. I think for production, piano is the best one to learn. You can lay anything out on a piano, like strings and, you know, and make it sound like it's not a piano, it's a guitar, or, you know.
Where can we hear your music?
Yeah, like I said, at the moment, I'm only on YouTube and SoundCloud. So if you go to SoundCloud, it's Dan Bana or Dan Bana Man, and basically they're all downloadable. So they're not just, oh, you can only play them on SoundCloud. You can download them and use them and play them, and, you know, record to them if you want, stuff like that. But only SoundCloud and YouTube, really. And I always just say to people, I don't want money at this point, not looking for any money. If you go to YouTube and you rip my beat off of YouTube and rap over it, or you rip my beat off of SoundCloud, all I ask is to name me in the title as produced by Dan Bana or beat by Dan Bana, and just give me a shout out on the mic. So if they're like, you know, shout out to Dan Bana on the beat or something like that, at this point in my career, I'm only after a bit of acknowledgement, really, and a bit of, you know, people to hear who you are and who made it, and then they might want to work with you, you know. So it's not really about earning money just yet. It's about, you know. So yeah, I think eventually, though, what I'd like to do, because I listen to them myself on Spotify, is I don't know if you've done it before, when you're studying, sometimes you can play like lo-fi chilled beats, and there's no words or anything, but people, when they're studying, they want a bit of background music, relaxing. So some of my beats are a bit like that. So I think I'd like to do beat tapes and put them on Spotify, and then do a collaborative album with loads of people around the Brighton area, get just loads of talented rappers from this area and make an album, really, like Dan Bana beats with Brighton artists on it, sort of thing. That'd be cool. But yeah, it's only SoundCloud and YouTube at the moment, but I'm aiming to be on all of the platforms eventually. It won't be long, probably another 6 months, and I'll pay to be on Spotify with DistroKid and things like that too.
Any new projects going on? Yeah,
like I said, I want to do a remix project just to show people I can remix. But because I've got OCD, so I have to do everything the same, like structure, you know. So because I've done 20 trap beats, 20 drill beats, 20 lo-fi, I will do 20 remixes and 20, what was the other project? Sample-based ones. So at the moment, I've gone through my DJ playlist, and I've found like 80 songs that I wouldn't mind chopping bits out of and sampling. And out of those, I'll choose 20 of the best. I'll play around with them. and then I'll make 20 sample based. So my next 2 beat tapes are 20 sample based tracks and 20 remixes. Yeah, they're my new ones. But then after that, I think I've learned enough, and I've done enough to want to actually start, you know what I mean, putting it out there a bit more, you know what I mean, and not going, oh, please work with me for free. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not working. So I'm not going to give everything away for free. If it's not working, then I've got to look at another way of doing it, you know? And there's companies like BeatStar and stuff like that you can just put your beats on and sell them, you know? I think sometimes when people have paid for it, there's a value to it. Do you know what I mean? So they'll value it more. Whereas if you just give it to them, they'll go, oh, I'll do that at some point, and it never happens, you know? Yeah, at the moment, latest projects, the remix and the sample-based beats. And then after that, I have got ideas. Like I said, I'd like to do like an album with everyone local sort of around the Brighton area. So if you know any rappers who might want to, rap on one of the beats, I'd like to, when I'm back at uni for the last year, just record them all in there and make use of the studio for a year and make a Brighton album, you know what I mean?